Hey, you. Yeah, you watching this right now, have you ever had someone try to push you around, thinking they could get away with it? Maybe it was a bully at school, sticking their nose in your face and saying mean things. Or maybe it was a boss at work, acting like they're the king of the world. Or oh boy, maybe it was a neighbor who thought they were smarter than everyone else, telling you what to do with your own stuff. Well, hold on tight, because today's story is going to blow your mind. It's about a quiet guy named Mike who had a secret weapon no one saw coming. And trust me, this story is so wild, you won't believe what happens next. Before we dive in, I need you to do something super fun. Grab your phone or your computer, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. Are you in New York? Florida? Maybe Texas? Or are you super far away, like in Australia or Japan? Tell me. And hey, if you enjoy stories like this, stories full of surprises and bad guys getting what they deserve, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button right now. It's super easy, and it helps me bring you more awesome stories. Oh, and here's a question to get your brain buzzing: what would you do if someone tried to steal your land right out from under you? Like, imagine you wake up one day, and someone says, "Nope, that's not your yard anymore, it's mine." Would you yell? Would you cry? Would you fight back? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let's see who's got the best comeback. Now, let's get into the story. Picture this: it was just another sunny day in a place called Pinewood Hills. The birds were chirping, the flowers were blooming, and the lawns were so green they looked like a big, soft carpet. Pinewood Hills was a neighborhood full of pretty houses, big trees, and people who loved to chat over their fences. But not everything was perfect. Oh no. Something big was about to happen, something that would shake this quiet little place to its core. In the middle of all this, there was a guy named Mike Thompson. Now, Mike wasn't the kind of person you'd notice right away. He wasn't loud, he didn't show off, and he didn't cause trouble. If you saw him walking down the street, you'd probably just keep going without a second look. Mike wore plain clothes, like old jeans and a faded blue shirt. He drove an old truck that made funny noises when it started, like vroom, clunk, vroom. And most of the time, he kept to himself, staying in his little house at the edge of the neighborhood. People saw him watering his flowers or fixing his mailbox, and they thought, "Oh, that's just Mike. He's boring." But here's the thing: Mike wasn't boring at all. Not even a little bit. What nobody knew was that Mike had a secret. And I don't mean a little secret, like hiding a candy bar in your desk at school. No, no, no. Mike's secret was huge, like a giant, sparkly treasure chest buried under the ground. It was a secret so big it could flip the whole neighborhood upside down, like a pancake on a hot griddle. See, Mike wasn't just the quiet new guy on the block, the guy everyone ignored. Oh no. He was hiding something that would soon make jaws drop to the floor and hearts race like a runaway train. But don't tell anyone yet. We'll get to that part soon, and trust me, it's worth the wait. Let's talk about Pinewood Hills a little more, because this place wasn't as peaceful as it looked. Sure, the lawns were perfect, and the houses were shiny, but there was trouble brewing, like a big, dark storm cloud hiding behind a sunny sky. In Pinewood Hills, there was something called the HOA. HOA stands for Homeowners Association, but don't worry if that sounds fancy, it's just a group of people who make rules for the neighborhood. They decide things like what color you can paint your house, how tall your grass can grow, and even what kind of mailbox you can have. Sounds boring, right? Well, not in Pinewood Hills, because the HOA here was run by someone very, very mean. Her name was Karen Miller. And let me tell you, Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the boss of the HOA, and she loved being the boss. She walked around with a clipboard, writing down every little thing she didn't like. Your flowers were too bright? Clipboard. Your fence was too tall? Clipboard. Your dog barked one time? Clipboard. Karen had a sharp nose, like a hawk looking for its next meal, and a voice so loud it could scare a grizzly bear. When Karen talked, people listened, or else. And Karen loved picking on people she thought were weak, people she thought couldn't fight back. And guess who she thought was the weakest of them all? That's right, Mike. See, Mike was new to Pinewood Hills. He moved in just a few months ago, and he didn't make a big fuss about it. He didn't throw a big party or brag about himself. He just moved into his little house, planted some flowers, and minded his own business. But to Karen, that made him the perfect target. She looked at Mike's plain clothes and his old truck, and she thought, oh, this guy is easy. I can push him around, and he won't do a thing. Karen didn't know it yet, but she was making a huge mistake, a mistake so big it would come back to bite her like a snapping turtle. So, on that sunny day in Pinewood Hills, everything seemed normal. The birds were singing, the kids were playing, and Mike was outside, watering his flowers with a rusty old watering can. But deep down, something was stirring. Something big. Something wild. Mike wasn't just watering flowers, he was waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment to use his secret weapon. And Karen? She was marching around, waving her clipboard, thinking she was the queen of the world. Little did she know, her crown was about to fall right off her head. Now, here's where things get really juicy. What was Mike's secret? Was he a superhero in disguise, hiding a cape under his plain shirt? Was he a spy, sneaking around with a secret mission? Or was he something even cooler, something nobody in Pinewood Hills could ever guess? I'm not going to tell you yet, because that would spoil the fun. But I will give you a tiny hint, Mike's secret was all about power. Not the kind of power that comes from being loud or mean, like Karen. No, Mike's power was quiet, smart, and strong, like a lion hiding in the grass, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. So, stick around, because the story is just getting started. What happens next will make your eyes pop out and your heart thump like a drum. Will Mike stay quiet forever, or will he fight back? And what about Karen? Will she keep being the queen of Pinewood Hills, or will her throne come crashing down? Keep watching, and I promise, you won't be disappointed. But not everyone in Pinewood Hills was quiet. Oh no. While Mike was busy watering his flowers and fixing his mailbox, there was someone else making a lot of noise. A lot of noise. Her name was Karen Miller, and she was the president of the HOA. Now, remember, the HOA is the group that makes rules for the neighborhood, like what color your house can be or how short your grass has to be. But Karen didn't just make rules. Oh no. She ruled the neighborhood like a queen sitting on a big, shiny throne. And let me tell you, Karen was not a nice queen. Karen had a sharp nose, like a bird looking for something to peck. She always carried a clipboard in her hand, and she loved writing things down. If your dog barked, she wrote it down. If your trash can was out too long, she wrote it down. If your flowers were the wrong color, guess what? She wrote it down. And Karen's voice, oh boy, her voice was loud and scary, like a grizzly bear roaring in the woods. When Karen talked, people listened, because they were afraid of what she'd do if they didn't. Karen loved power. She loved being the boss. And more than anything, she loved picking on people she thought were weak. If someone was quiet, or shy, or new to the neighborhood, Karen would zoom in on them like a shark smelling fish in the water. And to Karen, there was no one weaker than Mike Thompson. Poor, quiet Mike, with his plain clothes and his old truck. Karen looked at him and thought, oh, this guy is easy. I can push him around, and he won't do a thing. But oh, how wrong she was. One bright, sunny morning, Karen decided it was time to start trouble. She put on her shiny shoes, grabbed her clipboard, and marched right up to Mike's front yard. Mike was outside, hammering a nail into his fence, trying to fix a loose board. The fence was wooden, painted white, and it went all around his yard to keep his flowers safe. Karen stopped right in front of the fence, put her hands on her hips, and stared at Mike like he was a bug she wanted to squish. Mr. Thompson. Karen snapped, her voice loud enough to make the birds fly away. Your fence is 2 inches too tall. The rules say fences can only be 4 feet high, and yours is 4 feet and 2 inches. Fix it by tomorrow, or I'll fine you $500. Now, a fine is like a punishment where you have to pay money, and $500 is a lot of money, like enough to buy a whole mountain of candy bars. Karen thought Mike would be scared. She thought he'd beg her not to fine him. But Mike? He didn't beg. He didn't even frown. He just looked up from his hammer, nodded his head, and said, okay, I'll look at it. His face was calm, like a still pond, but inside, his brain was spinning like a top. Karen didn't like that. She wanted Mike to be scared. She wanted him to shake and shiver. So, she decided to make things even worse. She started spreading rumors. Rumors are like stories that aren't true, but people believe them anyway. Karen went to all the neighbors, waving her clipboard and saying, "Listen up, everyone. Mike's land isn't even his. I checked the records, and that land belongs to the neighborhood, not him. We're taking it back." She held up a big stack of papers, shaking them in the air like they were magic. "See," she bragged. "It's all right here in black and white." The neighbors gasped. Some of them smirked, which means they smiled in a mean way. "Oh, poor Mike," they whispered to each other. "He doesn't stand a chance against Karen. She's too smart, too strong, too mean." Some people even started to avoid Mike, like he was in big trouble and they didn't want to get caught up in it. They saw Mike working in his yard, planting flowers or fixing his fence, and they turned the other way, pretending not to see him. "Poor Mike," they thought. "Karen's going to win, and Mike's going to lose everything." But here's the thing: what Karen didn't know was that Mike wasn't scared. Not one bit. Not even a tiny bit. Every time Karen sneered at him, sneering is like smiling in a mean, nasty way, Mike just watched her. Every time she pointed her finger and yelled, Mike just nodded, his face calm and quiet. But his eyes, oh, his eyes were sharp, like a hawk flying high in the sky, watching everything below. Mike wasn't scared, because Mike was waiting. He was planning. And most importantly, he was holding onto a secret so big it would soon turn the tables on Karen, like flipping a pancake right out of the pan. Let's talk about Karen's clipboard for a second, because that clipboard was her favorite thing in the world. She carried it everywhere, like it was a magic wand. Every time she wrote something down, she felt stronger, like a superhero. But Karen wasn't a superhero. Oh no. She was more like a villain, the kind of bad guy you see in movies, twirling their mustache and laughing, ha ha ha. Karen thought her clipboard gave her power, but what she didn't know was that Mike had power, too. Not loud, noisy power like Karen's, but quiet, smart power, the kind of power that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. Now, let's go back to that day in Mike's yard, when Karen yelled about the fence. After Karen marched away, her clipboard swinging in her hand, Mike went back to his hammering. Bang, bang, bang went the hammer, fixing the loose board. But as he worked, Mike's brain was buzzing. He was thinking, "Oh, Karen, you think you're so smart. You think you can push me around. But just you wait." Mike didn't say this out loud, of course. He didn't need to. Mike was the kind of guy who didn't waste words. He let his actions do the talking, and soon, oh, very soon, those actions would be loud enough for everyone to hear. The neighbors kept watching, too. They saw Karen stomping around, yelling about Mike's land, and they saw Mike staying quiet, working in his yard. Some of them started to feel bad for Mike. "Poor guy," they'd say, shaking their heads. "He's so nice, so quiet. Why is Karen being so mean to him?" But others, well, others were on Karen's side. "If Karen says the land isn't his, then it must be true," they'd say, nodding like they knew everything. "Karen's the boss, after all. She always wins. But here's a little hint for you, things aren't always what they seem." Karen thought she was winning, but every time she yelled, every time she waved her clipboard, she was actually digging herself into a hole, a big, deep hole, like the kind you'd fall into if you weren't paying attention. And Mike? He was watching that hole get deeper and deeper, waiting for the perfect moment to push Karen right in. But don't tell anyone yet. That part comes later, and trust me, it's going to be so good, you'll want to jump up and cheer. So, there you have it. The trouble in Pinewood Hills was growing, like a big, dark cloud rolling over the sunny sky. Karen was mean, loud, and powerful, or so she thought. Mike was quiet, calm, and weak, or so everyone thought. But who was really strong? Who was really weak? And what was Mike's big secret, the one that would change everything? Stick around, because the story is just heating up, and the best parts are still to come. Days turned into weeks, and Karen's attacks on Mike got worse, way worse. She wasn't happy just yelling about his fence anymore. Oh no, Karen wanted to win big, and she wanted everyone to know it. So, she started doing all kinds of mean things to make Mike look bad. First, she sent letters, big, scary letters with red stamps on them. The letters said things like, "Mr. Thompson, your land isn't yours. You have 1 week to get out, or else." Karen made sure every neighbor got a copy of those letters, too, so they'd all think Mike was in big trouble. Then, Karen went even further. She posted huge signs with bright red letters right in front of Mike's house. The signs said, "Trespasser alert. This land belongs to the HOA, not Mike Thompson." Trespasser is a fancy word for someone who's on land they're not supposed to be on, like sneaking into someone else's backyard. Karen wanted everyone to think Mike was a bad guy, like a thief who stole something that wasn't his. She'd stand by the signs, pointing at them with her clipboard, and say, "See? I told you he doesn't belong here." But Karen didn't stop there. Oh no, she had one more trick up her sleeve, and it was a big one. She hired a surveyor. Now, a surveyor is a person who measures land to see who it really belongs to. Karen paid this guy to come to Pinewood Hills with his big tools and fancy machines. He walked around Mike's yard, sticking poles in the ground and writing things down on a clipboard of his own. When he was done, Karen grabbed his report, held it up high, and crowed. Crowing is like yelling in a super proud, annoying way. "See? This proves it. That land isn't yours, Mr. Thompson. Pack your bags and get out." The neighbors started whispering. Some of them stood on their porches, watching Mike's house like it was a show on TV. "Oh, poor Mike," they'd say, shaking their heads. "Karen's got proof now. He's done for." Others were meaner. They'd smirk and say, "I knew it. He's a trespasser, just like Karen said." Some neighbors even started avoiding Mike altogether. If they saw him walking down the street, they'd cross to the other side, pretending not to see him. If he waved hello, they'd look the other way, like he was invisible. Poor Mike, they thought. He doesn't stand a chance. But here's the thing: Mike didn't care. Not one bit. While everyone else was whispering and pointing, Mike just kept working in his yard. He planted flowers, bright red and yellow ones that made his yard look like a rainbow. He fixed that fence Karen hated so much, hammering nails and painting it white until it looked perfect. If you saw him, you'd think, "Oh, that's just Mike, being boring old Mike." But oh, how wrong you'd be. Mike wasn't just gardening. Oh no. He was doing something much, much bigger. While Karen was busy flapping her gums means talking a lot, especially in a loud, annoying way, Mike was busy gathering papers of his own. See, Mike wasn't the kind of guy who yelled or fought back with words. He was the kind of guy who used his brain, like a detective solving a mystery. Every night, when the neighborhood was dark and quiet, Mike stayed up late in his little house. He sat at his kitchen table, with a lamp shining bright, flipping through folders full of papers. Some papers had big, fancy words on them, like deed and title, but don't worry, those just mean proof that land belongs to someone. Mike had a big stack of those papers, and he was checking every single one, making sure everything was perfect. Mike wasn't just looking at papers, though. Oh no. He was making phone calls, too. He'd pick up his old phone, the kind with buttons, not a touch screen, and call people far away. "Hello," he'd say, his voice quiet but strong. "I need to check something. Can you help me?" The people on the other end would say, "Sure, Mike, we'll help." And then they'd send him more papers, more proof, more pieces to his puzzle. Mike would write notes, too, in a little notebook he kept in his pocket. Every time Karen bragged about winning, Mike would add another piece to his puzzle, like putting together a jigsaw that would soon show a very surprising picture. Now, here's the best part: Karen had no idea what Mike was up to. None. She thought she was so smart, so strong, so unbeatable. Every time she sent a letter, posted a sign, or waved that surveyor's report, she thought, "Ha! I'm winning. Mike's going to lose, and I'm going to be the queen forever." But little did she know, each step she took was digging her own hole deeper and deeper. Digging a hole is like when you do something bad, and it makes things worse for you, not better. Karen was digging a hole so deep, she'd never climb out, and Mike was just waiting for the perfect moment to watch her fall in. One sunny afternoon, something interesting happened. A neighbor named Tim stopped by Mike's yard. Tim was a nice guy, but he was a little scared of Karen, like most people in Pinewood Hills. He saw Mike planting flowers, and he scratched his head, looking confused. "Hey, man," Tim said, kicking at the dirt with his shoe. "Why don't you just give up? Karen always wins. She's got that surveyor's report, those signs, everything. You can't beat her. Mike looked up from his flowers, a small smile on his face. It wasn't a big smile, like when you're laughing at a funny joke. No, it was a quiet smile, the kind that makes you wonder what someone's thinking. "Oh, Tim," Mike said softly, his voice calm like a still pond, "things aren't always what they seem." Then he went back to planting his flowers, like nothing had happened. Tim walked away, scratching his head even more. He was confused, super confused. What did Mike mean, things aren't always what they seem? Was Mike just being weird, or was there something more going on? Tim couldn't figure it out, but something about Mike's smile stuck with him, like a song you can't get out of your head. What was Mike up to? Was he really just planting flowers, or was there something bigger, something huge hiding behind that quiet smile? The neighbors kept watching, too. Every day, they'd see Karen marching around, waving her clipboard, and they'd see Mike working in his yard, quiet as a mouse. Some of them started to wonder, why isn't Mike fighting back? Why isn't he yelling or arguing? Others thought, oh, he's just scared. Karen's too strong for him. But here's a little hint for you, Mike wasn't scared. Not even a tiny bit. He was waiting, planning, and building his puzzle, piece by piece. And soon, oh, very soon that puzzle would be complete, and everyone would see the picture it made. A picture so surprising, it would make jaws drop and hearts race. So, there you have it, the trouble in Pinewood Hills was growing, like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger. Karen was meaner than ever, and Mike was quieter than ever. But who was really winning? Who was really losing? And what was Mike's big secret, the one he was hiding in his folders and notebooks? Stick around, because the story is just getting juicy, and the best parts are still to come. The big day arrived, the HOA meeting where Karen planned to officially take Mike's land. Oh, it was a huge deal in Pinewood Hills. The meeting room was packed, like a can of sardines, buzzing with excitement. Everyone was there, neighbors from every street, all squished into chairs, whispering and pointing. They couldn't wait to see what would happen. Karen had been bragging for weeks, saying she was going to win, and most people believed her. After all, Karen always won, right? Poor Mike, they thought. He's in big trouble now. Karen stood at the front of the room, holding her clipboard high, like it was a shiny trophy. She had a big, mean smile on her face, the kind of smile a bully makes when they think they're about to crush someone. Today, she declared, her voice loud and sharp, we reclaim what's ours. Mr. Thompson, your time is up. She pointed her finger at the empty chair where Mike was supposed to sit, like she was a queen kicking someone out of her kingdom. The crowd cheered, some clapping, others nodding their heads. Yeah, Karen, they shouted. You show him. Poor Mike, they thought again. He's toast, just like bread burned in a toaster. But then, something happened. Something big. The door to the meeting room swung open with a loud creak, and in walked Mike. But wait, this wasn't the Mike everyone knew. Oh no. He wasn't wearing his usual plain clothes, like his old jeans and faded blue shirt. No, today Mike looked different, way different. He wore a sharp suit, black and shiny, like something a superhero might wear under their cape. His hair was combed back, neat and tidy, not messy like usual. And in his hand, he carried a thick leather briefcase, the kind of thing you see in movies when someone important walks into a courtroom. Heads turned. Whispers spread through the room, like wind blowing through the trees. Whoa, is that Mike? People said. What's he doing? Why's he dressed like that? Karen smirked, that mean smile on her face faltered, just for a second, like a light flickering in a storm. But she quickly recovered, puffing out her chest and sneering. Oh, look, she said, her voice dripping with nastiness, Mr. Thompson thinks a suit will save him. Sit down, sir, and watch me win. She pointed at the empty chair again, like she was telling a dog to sit. But Mike didn't sit. Oh no. He didn't even look at the chair. Instead, he walked straight to the front of the room, his steps calm but strong, like a lion walking through the jungle. Every eye in the room was on him, watching, waiting. He set his briefcase on the table with a loud thud, so loud it made people jump in their seats. Then he turned to face the crowd, standing tall, his face calm but his eyes sharp, like a hawk ready to swoop. I think it's time, Mike said, his voice clear and steady, that you all learned who I really am. The room went quiet, dead quiet. You could hear a pin drop, it was so silent. Karen laughed, but it wasn't her usual loud, mean laugh. No, this laugh sounded nervous, like she wasn't sure what was happening. What are you talking about? She snapped, clutching her clipboard tighter, like it was a shield. You're just Mike, the boring guy with the old truck. Stop wasting our time. But Mike wasn't wasting anyone's time. Oh no. He opened his briefcase, pulling out a stack of papers, maps, and photos. The papers were thick, with big, important-looking stamps on them. The maps were colorful, with lines and arrows pointing to different spots. And the photos, oh, the photos showed things nobody expected. Mike held up the stack, showing it to the crowd, and said, "My name is Michael J. Thompson, and I'm not just your neighbor. I'm a real estate lawyer with 15 years of experience. And Karen, I've been watching you break every rule in the book." The room went crazy. People gasped, like they'd just seen a ghost. Some covered their mouths, their eyes wide. Others leaned forward in their chairs, trying to see better. Karen's face turned white, like all the color had drained out of it. Her clipboard shook in her hands, and her mouth opened, but no words came out. A real estate lawyer? That's someone who knows all the rules about land, houses, and property, someone super smart who can catch people doing bad things with land. And Mike was one of those people? Whoa. Mike held up a map, pointing to a spot with a big red circle around it. "This land," he said, his voice strong, "it's mine. I have the deeds, the titles, and the proof. Deeds and titles are like special papers that say who owns land, kind of like a ticket that says a toy belongs to you." Mike held up those papers, showing the crowd, and everyone could see the big stamps and signatures on them. "But you, Karen," Mike said, pointing right at her, "you've been forging documents, lying to the HOA, and trying to steal what isn't yours. And guess what? I've got it all on record. Forging documents means making fake papers, like drawing a fake report card to trick your teacher. And Karen had done that." The crowd gasped again, even louder this time. Karen stammered, which means she tried to talk but her words got all jumbled up. That's not true. You're lying." But Mike wasn't done. Oh no. He reached into his briefcase again, pulling out a small, black recorder, a machine that records voices, like when you record a song on your phone. He held it up, pressed play, and suddenly, Karen's voice echoed through the room, loud and clear. "Ha ha ha." Karen's voice said on the recording. "I'm fooling everyone. Those papers are fake, but nobody will know. I'm taking Mike's land, and there's nothing he can do about it." The neighbors stared, their jaws on the floor, like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Karen's voice kept going, bragging about how smart she was, how she'd tricked everyone, how she'd win. But now, everyone knew the truth. Karen wasn't smart. She was a liar, a cheat, and a bully, and Mike had caught her red-handed. Karen's clipboard slipped from her hands, hitting the ground with a loud clatter. She looked around, her eyes wide, her face pale, like she wanted to run away but didn't know where to go. The crowd was buzzing now, whispering, pointing, shouting. "She lied," someone yelled. "She tried to steal his land," another person shouted. "Karen's the trespasser, not Mike." The room was chaos, but it was good chaos, the kind where the bad guy finally gets caught, and the good guy finally wins. Mike stood there, calm and strong, his papers in one hand, the recorder in the other. He didn't need to yell. He didn't need to brag. His proof did all the talking, and it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Poor Mike, they had thought. He's toast. But now, they saw the truth. Mike wasn't poor, and he wasn't toast. He was a hero, a quiet hero who had waited for the perfect moment to show his power. And Karen? She wasn't a queen anymore. Her throne was broken, her crown was gone, and her mean, nasty game was over. The aftermath, the stuff that happened after Mike's big reveal, was chaos, but the good kind. Imagine a big party where everyone is cheering because the bad guy finally got caught, and the good guy finally won. That's what it felt like in the meeting room at Pinewood Hills. The room was buzzing, like a beehive full of excited bees, with people talking, shouting, and pointing. Karen's clipboard was still on the floor, forgotten, and her mean, nasty smile was gone, replaced by a look of shock, like she'd just seen a ghost. The HOA board, the people who make the rules for the neighborhood, didn't waste any time. They jumped up from their chairs, their faces red with anger, and pointed at Karen. "You're fired," they shouted, all at once, like a big, loud chorus. Fired means you lose your job, like when you're told you can't come back to work because you did something really bad. And Karen had done something really, really bad. She wasn't the president of the HOA anymore. Her throne was broken, her crown was gone, and her clipboard was just a piece of junk on the floor. But that wasn't all. Oh no. What Karen did wasn't just mean, it was against the law. So, someone picked up a phone and called the police. Yep, the real police, with their shiny badges and blue uniforms. When the police arrived, the room got even louder, with people pointing at Karen and saying, "She lied. She cheated. She tried to steal Mike's land." The police listened to Mike's recording, looked at his papers, and nodded their heads. "Yep," one officer said, "this is serious. They told Karen she was in big trouble called fraud and forgery. Fraud means lying to trick people, and forgery means making fake papers, like drawing a fake treasure map to trick someone into giving you their gold. And Karen had done both of those things, big time." The police put handcuffs on Karen's wrists. Handcuffs are those metal bracelets that lock your hands together so you can't run away. Karen's face turned even whiter, like a piece of paper, and she started yelling, "This isn't over. You can't do this to me." But everyone knew it was over. As the officers led her out of the room, people clapped and cheered, like they were watching the end of a movie where the villain gets caught. Karen kept screaming, her voice getting smaller and smaller as the door closed behind her, but nobody cared. Mike's land was safe, and the neighborhood was free of Karen's reign of terror. Reign of terror is a fancy way of saying she was a big, mean bully who scared everyone, but now, that was done, finished, over. With Karen gone, the room started to calm down, but the excitement wasn't over yet. Oh no. Now, everyone turned to Mike, their eyes wide, their mouths open, like they were seeing him for the first time. The neighbors who had once avoided Mike crossing the street when they saw him, pretending not to see him wave, now lined up to apologize. Apologize means saying sorry, like when you accidentally step on someone's foot and say, "Oops, I'm sorry." But this was bigger than stepping on a foot. These people had believed Karen's lies, and they felt bad, really bad. One by one, they walked up to Mike, their heads down, their faces red. Tim, the neighbor who had told Mike to give up, was first. He scratched his head, looking at the ground, and said, "Hey, man, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were so smart, so strong. You're a hero, man." A hero is someone who does something brave, like saving the day, and that's exactly what Mike had done. Mike just smiled, a quiet, kind smile, not a big, bragging one, and shook Tim's hand. "It's okay," Mike said, his voice calm, like a still pond. "I just wanted to live in peace, but I'll fight for what's right." More neighbors came up, one after another, saying sorry, shaking Mike's hand, even giving him hugs. "We were wrong," they said. "We thought Karen was telling the truth, but you showed us she was a liar." Some people even clapped Mike on the back, like he was a star player who just scored the winning goal in a game. Mike didn't brag, though. He didn't puff out his chest or say, "Ha! I told you so." No, Mike was still Mike, quiet, calm, and kind. But now, everyone saw him differently. He wasn't just the boring guy with the old truck. He was the hero of Pinewood Hills, the guy who beat the bully and saved the day. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no. With Karen gone, the neighborhood had to change, and it changed for the better, way better. The HOA board got together and elected a new president. Elect means to choose someone, like when you vote for the class leader at school. The new president wasn't mean like Karen. Oh no. It was a nice lady named Mrs. Jenkins, who loved flowers, smiled a lot, and never carried a clipboard. Mrs. Jenkins said, "No more crazy rules. No more bullying. Let's make Pinewood Hills a happy place again." And everyone cheered, clapping their hands, because that's exactly what they wanted. Under Mrs. Jenkins, the neighborhood changed fast. The crazy rules, like how tall your fence could be or what color your flowers had to be, were gone, poof, like magic. People could paint their houses bright colors, like blue or yellow, without getting in trouble. They could let their grass grow a little tall, and nobody cared. And best of all, there was no more bullying. If someone had a problem, they talked about it nicely, like friends, not like enemies. Pinewood Hills wasn't just a pretty place anymore, it was a happy place, a place where people smiled, waved, and helped each other, not yelled or pointed fingers. And Mike? What happened to Mike, the quiet hero? Well, he went back to his quiet life, just like before. He planted flowers in his yard, bright red, yellow, and purple ones that made everyone smile when they walked by. He fixed fences, hammering nails and painting boards, making his house look neat and tidy. He drove his old truck, with its funny noises, vroom, clunk, vroom, and waved hello to his neighbors, just like always. To look at him, you'd think nothing had changed. But oh, everything had changed, because now, everyone knew mess with Mike, and you'll regret it. Mike was quiet, but he was strong, like a lion hiding in the grass, ready to pounce if he had to. The neighbors never forgot what Mike did. They told the story over and over, like a favorite bedtime tale, about the quiet man who beat the mean queen. Kids in the neighborhood even started playing a game called Mike the Hero, where one kid pretended to be Mike with a briefcase, and another kid pretended to be Karen with a clipboard, yelling, "Your fence is too tall." But in the game, Mike always won, just like in real life. And every time someone new moved to Pinewood Hills, the neighbors would say, "Oh, you have to meet Mike. He's quiet, but he's the strongest guy we know." So, there you have it, the happy ending to the story of Pinewood Hills. Karen was gone, the neighborhood was free, and Mike was the hero everyone loved. It was the kind of ending that makes you feel warm inside, like drinking hot cocoa on a cold day. But most importantly, it was the kind of ending that showed what happens when you fight for what's right, even if you're quiet, even if you're small, even if everyone thinks you'll lose. Because sometimes, the quietest person is the strongest one of all. And there you have it, folks, the story of a quiet man who turned the tables on a bully. Wow, what a ride, right? Mike was so quiet, so calm, but oh boy, was he strong. He didn't yell, he didn't scream, he didn't even get mad, but he still beat Karen, the meanest bully in Pinewood Hills. And Karen? She thought she was the queen, the boss, the strongest one of all, but she was wrong, super wrong. This story teaches us something big, something important, and I want you to think about it with me, okay? Sometimes, the person you think is weak is actually the strongest one in the room. Think about it. Karen looked at Mike and saw a boring guy with old clothes and an old truck. She thought, oh, he's easy to push around. He's weak. But Mike wasn't weak. Oh no. He was smart, brave, and strong, like a superhero hiding under a plain cape. Mike showed us that strength isn't always loud, like yelling or bragging. Sometimes, strength is quiet, like a whisper, but it's still super powerful, like a lion waiting in the grass. And what about Karen? She judged Mike by appearances. That means she looked at him and decided who he was without really knowing him. Big mistake. Those who judge by appearances, like Karen did, are the ones who never see it coming. Karen thought she knew everything, but she didn't know Mike's secret. She didn't know he was a real estate lawyer, a smart guy with papers, maps, and proof. And because she judged him wrong, she lost big time. So, here's a lesson for all of us: don't judge people by how they look, what they wear, or how loud they are. You never know who's hiding something amazing, something strong, something that can surprise you. So, what do you think? I want to hear from you, right now. Could you stay calm like Mike, even if someone was being mean to you, pushing you around, calling you names? Or would you lose your cool, start yelling, and get mad? There's no wrong answer, but I want to know what you'd do. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's see what everyone says. Oh, and while you're there, don't forget to hit that big, red like button. It's super easy, and it helps me know you enjoyed this story. And if you want more stories like this, stories full of surprises, heroes, and bullies getting what they deserve, make sure to hit the subscribe button, too. It's right there, waiting for you, and it means you'll never miss a story. Here's one last thing to remember, okay? You never know who's hiding a secret weapon. Maybe it's the quiet kid at school, the one who doesn't talk much but is super smart. Maybe it's the person everyone ignores, but they're really brave inside. Or maybe, just maybe, it's you. Maybe you've got a secret weapon, something strong, something amazing, just waiting for the right moment to shine. So, hold your head up high, be kind, and don't judge others, because you never know who's going to surprise you. See you next time, friends, for another awesome story.